We're still privately owned today and have over 5,000 people in over 70 countries, giving us a global reach. We specialise in sustainability, certifications, logistics, and quality and risk management, with clients of all sizes in all sectors around the world. Respect for the environment is one of our core values, as demonstrated by our tree planting project, in which we embarked upon planting a valuable Indigenous tree for each of our employees globally to celebrate reaching 100 years in business last year. My name is Rose Riley, and joining me today are some expert speakers. Frederica is a marine biologist and environmental scientist who has been working in the certification field for 3 years with particular attention to plastics-related programs. She is head of our plastic-free and responsible plastic management schemes at Control Union. Hannah has a background in environmental resource management and has been working with Icc certifications for 6 years now. She's also the program manager for the Green Button certification system, which is based on the Global Recycle Standard. Frank is our Managing Director of Control Union in the Netherlands and was previously responsible for implementing various sustainability initiatives at companies like Unilever, Nestlé, and PepsiCo. And last but not least, Katrin, who has a background in business and sustainability and has been working with Control Union for the last 2.5 years. Based in Germany, she's been involved in a variety of plastic-related certifications. On our agenda today, I'm going to give you a brief introduction as to why plastic certifications are of interest and in fact important to businesses. I'm then going to hand over to each of our speakers who are going to go through an overview of the plastic-related schemes that we have at Control Union. There'll then be a brief summary before we go on to the Q&A. With so many people on the call, we're going to be keeping you all on mute just so that we don't get too much background noise. So please type any questions that you've got for the Q&A session into the chat along the side as we're going along, and I will be moderating the Q&A when we get to that at the end of the session. If there are any questions that we don't get to, don't worry, we will follow up with you all afterwards. We're aiming for around about 1 hour for the presentation today and 30 minutes for the Q&A. So, to get started, why do you need a plastics certification? We are in a global plastics crisis. Plastic has been found in the fossil record, leading scientists to dub this the plastics age, like the Bronze Age and the Iron Age before us. Plastic pollution is devastating our climate and biodiversity and is even impacting on human health. It's clogging our oceans and our natural spaces. But what's this got to do with businesses? Well, just this week, there have been headlines that UK plastic waste, which should have been recycled, is in fact being dumped and burned in Turkey, with organisations naming the supermarkets and retail brands whose plastic bags were being found in amongst that waste. So plastic waste is harmful for businesses' brands. The worst polluters are being regularly named and shamed by the audits done by organisations such as Greenpeace and Break Free from Plastic, with those stories always making the headlines. Additionally, consumers are now actively choosing plastic-free alternatives wherever they can, and those businesses not considering their use of plastic are missing out on growing markets. For example, the bamboo toothbrush market is growing at 10% per annum, which is impressive in our current economic climate globally. And we're also finding NGOs are urging governments to ban plastic waste export and reduce single-use plastic significantly, with their focus being on preventing overproduction of plastic and reducing poorly managed plastic waste. These things cannot happen without cooperation from businesses. But what is a certification? Hopefully most of you are well aware, but there may be some who've joined us today who are new to certifications. So let's take a quick look at a definition. ISO defines certifications as the provision by an independent body, such as Control Union, of a written assurance that a product, service, or system meets specific requirements. What that means is that a certification is robust, independent, and against a recognised standard. So I'm now going to hand over to Frederica, who is going to go through the first of our plastic schemes. Frederica, you're on mute.
Yeah. So the first scheme that we'll be talking about is the plastic-free one. which is a very innovative and the first standard for plastic-free products. It actually confirms that the products or the packaging or a material certified is 100% plastic-free. The requirements for the standard, for the certification, are really simple. So like a product must be 100% plastic-free. It was created by A Plastic Planet, which is an organization who aim to turn off the plastic tap. They are not demonizing plastic, but they consider it like a valuable material that should be used only in specific occasion and not abused as it is like in our society and in our economy and in our markets. It's a global certification scheme, so it's applicable all over the world, and we started certifying actively in all the region of the globe. Who is it for? It's very simple. It's applicable to any sector. So from the production to like meat products, to finished products, to packaging, everything can be certified as plastic free. There are like 3 modules, 3 categories. So we have a plastic free retail ready product, which means that both the packaging and the content are plastic free. Then we have like the module for plastic free packaging, saying this packaging is plastic free, which guarantees that exclusively the packaging is plastic free. And then there is a very innovative one for materials that certifies that like the material is plastic free. Of course, like this last category won't have like a non-product logo, but it's really important to push the innovation and the study of new materials. Benefits are really clear. Of course, like the logo, which has been in use for like a few years already, because A Plastic Planet was strongly campaigning for like the plastic-free certification. And of course, like the mark is really iconic, is extremely well designed and really clear. So it says the message that it communicates is really clear. What you're buying is plastic free. So of course, like it helps out to stand out as a market leading innovators and add values to the product, especially now that consumers are more and more looking for more sustainable product. And this logo was actually studied and developed for shoppers. So it needs to be clear to the people that goes in the shop and actively buy, so they can do that consciously. Yeah, thank you. The thing that makes this certification very credible is, first of all, its simplicity and clarity. I mean, plastic free is plastic free. So there are like the main requirements are basically 2. So the certification works for a product that can be composted and other materials. For products that can be composted, they need to be at least 50% bio-based. So it's really simple, and therefore it gives like a clear idea of what you're buying. And of course, like it was developed by a panel of experts, of course, like material scientists in collaboration with Control Union and A Plastic Planet, in order to have the more complete standard, like in this very peculiar sector, which is plastic. At the moment, we have about 150 brands using the mark globally, and of course, like it can be seen already on over 1,000 products. And we have like some like very good brands that are already using the plastic-free certification mark, like especially in the UK, like TP, Perco Coffee, Plain Choc, Jellyfish Lee Wire, and Idlewild Distillery in Iceland. So it's really applicable to any kind of sector, from like food and beverages for the packaging to, for example, as Jellyfish Lee Wire, Live Wire for like cards. And so it's really flexible. And we can see also from the declaration that Graham Lysett from Jellyfish left us, it was actually a good added value to their product, because of course, like, they are really proud of being able to carry the plastic-free mark that actually celebrate and demonstrate the effort that they've made in order to look for a more sustainable material for their product. Thank you. The next scheme that we're going to talk about is the responsible plastic management. So we go from plastic-free to management. We know that plastic cannot be completely removed from our organization, but the thing is that, like, whenever it can be 100% removed, it can be managed in a proper way. This scheme is very new to the market. It was founded in 2019 by a non-for-profit social enterprise, and it aims to help businesses to achieve a circular plastic economy. So it was funded as a verification certification program that helps demonstrate transparency and, most importantly, measurability of the plastic management within an organization. It's a system-based approach that considers plastic across the whole operation and pushes organization to set targets and objectives, like, for example, reducing the use of unnecessary plastic products and processes through innovation and redesign. This is what this scheme is aimed for, like innovation and redesign, to give like a new to have like new approach to plastic and plastic products in businesses. Then, of course, like another target would can be like eliminating the single-use plastic from everyday activities, which are like very simple steps that can make like a big change. In the responsible plastic management scheme, there are like two ways. One is the way of training, which is offered directly by responsible plastic management, by the scheme owner. And then, of course, there is the verification and certification. And of course, like both these way can meet at the end with like a proper like a certification issued to the company. It's relevant to all the sector and company sizes. Actually, there are the companies, they can be categorized according to the use of plastic that they have in low, moderate, and high. So like it doesn't matter how much plastic there is actually within the business, everyone can improve. And of course, like this one as well is a global certification scheme, which means that the standard is set globally. So whoever in the world you are, there will be like the same standard applied to your company. And these will make, you know, comparable the standard across the the certified companies across the world. The benefits, of course, it's a highly flexible and for different types of plastic users. So as we said, it can be adopted by low user, medium user, or high user, which is also like companies that produce plastic products in plastic packaging. So the aim is for everyone to reduce as much as they can the use of plastic when it's not necessary. Of course, like it's very useful to reduce environmental impact because it's based on the three main principles, which are reduce, reuse, and recycle. It guiding the companies that decide to start the certification through like a process that brings them to reduce, reuse, and recycle. Of course, like the RPM certification mark can be used for public claims, so companies can actually demonstrate that they have like this sort of commitment. And obviously, it offers a competitive advantage when selling to environmentally conscious customers, because as we know, buyers and shoppers are more and more concerned about the environmental issues, especially plastic. Also, a potential added value for the company is a reduction of costs associated with the production and use of plastic. Now we know that in many countries there are new taxes that will penalize companies that use or do not guarantee the suitable end of life of the plastic product. So this scheme can always also help for that. The credibility of this mark is given by the fact that it was developed in a certain way to align to the Plastic Pact and ISO standard. So the structure is really the one of a management system. So it controls the activity of a company in the different steps. It is made of 5 steps or 5 components, which are a plastic policy, which is like a commitment to plastic reduction. So a company, an applicant for this certification needs to make a clear commitment, creating a policy. A plastic register that, like, for example, include the material mass balance, inputs and output of plastic. A reduction action plan. So there must be like concrete actions in order to reduce the plastic. That will also help understanding options and setting targets. Reduction record, of course, in every company needs to keep track on the amount of plastic that they are reducing in every step, and of course to demonstrate that they are sticking to their commitment, and of course like an improvement commitment, because this standard is based on a continuous improvement system. So every year there should be like a continuous improvement. And of course, like all the other certification, it provides an independent and robust system of integrity and a guarantee that the requirements of the standards are maintained and respected. And of course, like it's very new, but there are already very important partners as WWF, One Shared Earth, and the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. And of course, like there are also some like members already, like Aniken, Bombardier, Belfast Harbour, Media Foods, and White Mountain. Of course, like as Peter Marshall, which is part of the responsible plastic management, says, it's really practical and pragmatic because it's process and system focus, similar to an ISO. So it's really easy for companies to approach it because like the majority of them have already had something to do with the ISO programs, and it aims to identify, measure, and help to remove the plastic and unnecessary plastic from the organization, which is of course like the final goal. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Frederica. Passing over to Hannah now. And just to say, if anybody does have any questions, please remember to type them into the chat.
Thank you, Rose. Now we will be talking about the Global Recycled Standard, further referred to as GRS, and also the Recycled Claim Standard, further abbreviated as RCS. What are the RCS and the GRS? They are international voluntary standards that set requirements for third-party certification of recycled input and chain of custody. The shared goal of the standards is to increase the use of recycled materials. The GRS includes additional criteria for social and environmental processing requirements and chemical restrictions. They are highly established to track and verify recycled material through the supply chain. Both are widely used in the textile industry and are now also increasingly used in technical packaging and automotive industries. The RCS verifies the presence and amount of recycled material in a final product. This happens through the input and chain of custody verification from a third party. It allows for the transparent, consistent, and comprehensive independent evaluation and verification of recycled material content claims on products. The GRS was originally developed by Country Union in 2008, and ownership was passed to Textile Exchange in 2011. Just like the RCS, the GRS is intended to meet the needs of the companies looking to verify the recycled content of their products, both finished and intermediate. And additionally, GRS sites are required to meet strict social and environmental requirements. Chemicals with potential for harm are not permitted to be used on GRS products. The objectives of both standards are to define requirements to ensure accurate content claims. For both standards, both pre-consumer and post-consumer material is accepted. This means that RCS and GRS can be used as a business-to-business tool to give companies the means to ensure that they are selling quality products and getting what they pay for. This includes companies in ginning, spinning, weaving and knitting, dyeing and printing, and stitching. The RCS has two versions, the RCS 100 and the RCS Blended, which I will explain in more detail later on. So what are the benefits of these programs? As already explained, the standards provide for a clear verification of recycled content and products. Also, they are industry-leading standards and are managed with the input of recyclers, suppliers, and brands and retailers from all parts of the globe. Each stage in the supply chain is audited by a professional third-party certifier like ContraUnion. The chain of custody certification ensures that the identity of the recycled material is maintained from the recycler to the final product. The standards are used as a way to ensure accurate and honest communication with consumers, and they provide consumers, both brands and end consumers, with a tool to make informed decisions. Products that meet all the requirements may be labeled with the RCS or the GRS logo and can carry the high respected certification marks. So what makes these standards credible? As explained previously, they are industry-leading, internationally recognized industry standards, where the chain of custody certification ensures that the identity of the recycled material is maintained throughout all stages of the supply chain, from the recycler to the final product. GRS guarantees that a product contains at least 20% recycled content and includes social and environmental criteria. RCS has different thresholds for recycled content. RCS 100 guarantees that a product contains 95 to 100% recycled materials, whereas RCS Blended guarantees that a product contains 5 up to 95% of recycled materials. There are already over 10,000 certified companies worldwide, among which leading companies like Trevira, Ghent, All Saints, Kiel Toys, LF Fashion, and E-Leather, but also many more. Volker Wellhäuser, our client from Trevira, said, with the GRS certification system, ContraUnion supports our company in its endeavors to manufacture better, more resource-efficient products and to achieve our demanding sustainability goals. The next standard we are looking at is Icc Plus. This is a very different industry we are looking at now. Icc Plus has been developed by Icc, which stands for International Sustainability and Carbon Certification. It has been developed through an open multi-stakeholder process and is governed by an association with more than 160 members, including research institutes and NGOs. Icc has its roots in bio-based and bio-waste-based raw materials and its supply chains that originally ended up in bioenergy, but are more and more recognized in the food, feed, or chemical market and other industrial applications. There are two certification systems, firstly with Icc EU, which adheres to the requirements of the European Renewable Energy Directive and the Fuel Quality Directive. The one that's interesting for us today is Icc Plus, which is for all markets not regulated by the RED. This includes food, feed, chemical, and energy markets and technical applications. And it provides a certification for recycled or circular plastics and bio-based materials with the aim to support the circular plastics economy. Input can be any circular or bio-based product that can be used to create plastic and recycled plastic. Icc's core principles are protection of land with high biodiversity value and high carbon stock, environmentally responsible production to protect soil, water, and air, safe working conditions, compliance with human, labor, and land rights, and responsible community relations, compliance with applicable laws and relevant international treaties, and good management practices and commitment to continuous improvement. Benefits. Just like the RCS and the GRS, Icc is a chain of custody standard, which means that certified products have a robust proof of traceability from a sustainable source throughout every step of the supply chain. Icc is based on an internationally recognized standard, and an Icc certificate is proof of compliance with Icc requirements on sustainable biomass production, traceability of waste origin, and, if chosen, documentation of greenhouse gas emission data. Next slide, thank you. So what makes this certification credible? Icc is an independent multi-stakeholder organization that regularly and actively seeks review and feedback on their schemes from stakeholders and provides a globally applicable certification system for the sustainability of raw materials and products. With currently over 4,000 valid certificates in more than 100 countries, Icc is among the largest certification systems. Certified companies are helping to protect forest, wetland, peatland, and highly biodiverse grassland. When using bio-based materials, supporting aforementioned production practices are key for a sustainable alternative for fossil-based plastics. Additionally, with the Icc Plus scheme, solutions around the circular economy, including also fossil waste-based raw materials, make that the scheme is catching all potential solutions to conquer the challenge we face today related to plastics. Furthermore, it provides a modular structure with add-ons available for specific industries or markets. Various claims can be asserted entirely according to the needs of the supply chain. There are voluntary add-ons available for those who require this. Examples are classified chemicals, biological management, greenhouse gas emissions, consumer products, and non-GMO. With its broad setup and already widely used certification system, Icc Plus is clearly a leading certification scheme that leaves it up to the supply chain and their specific requirements to choose what solution fits best. One can decide to certify plastic material either on a circular-based, both with originally fossil and bio-based material, or a bio-based or other renewable setup. Icc's applicability on all these options makes it an interesting scheme to consider for those companies and supply chains that cannot rely on other alternatives. Claims can be on product and off product. Certified companies include Braskem, Beiersdorf, Joki, NatureWorks, or Itochu Plastics, but also here, many more. Our client Beiersdorf said the following: for a company, the Icc Plus certification enables us to use new, credible, traceable, and sustainable materials, which then help to decrease the environmental impact of our packaging. It means we have access to verified sustainable materials as an alternative to today's fossil fuel-based plastics.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Hannah. And thank you for the questions that have been coming through. I have been making a note of them. Any more, please do put them in the chat. We're now going to pass over to Frank.
Yes, brilliant. I hope everyone can hear me. So I'm going to tell a few words about the plastic waste reduction standard. It's one of the younger schemes that we are presenting today. So it has been launched and published earlier this year by organization Vera, who is the scheme owner, and Vera is also known for various range of schemes that they manage, but one of them is the VCS, Verified Carbon Standard, which is one of the market-leading programs on carbon crediting. and that concept knowledge is also used to establish a scheme that is focused on plastic credits. So it has been created by Vera, also in collaboration with the 3R initiatives, known for the reduce, reuse, recycle concept. And the 3R was also responsible for developing and publishing the guidelines for corporate plastic stewardship, and that includes the best practices on plastic accounting and reporting for plastic footprint and mitigation measures. And the plastic waste reduction standard is basically one of the tools to help companies achieve their commitments they are making on plastic waste reduction. It's a management system for consistent and transparent accounting for plastic waste and reduction activities, and basically incentivize the plastic waste collection or the plastic recycling activities. And it aims to help businesses achieve plastic circularity. So if you look, who is it for? Well, basically for all sectors. It's post-consumer, post-industrial. But if you look who can actually apply for certification, that's really the plastic waste collectors, both informal and formal, and the recycling companies. And after they certified, basically it would allow them to create plastic credits, whereby one plastic credit would stand for 1 metric ton of plastic collected or recycled. Those credits are managed by the registry system managed by Vera, and that can be then purchased by any company in the world. And basically it would be companies that are looking to mitigate the parts of their plastic footprint, whereby they cannot manage mitigate their full impact with own actions, both internally or in the supply chain. And for them, they would be offered the opportunity to purchase the credit, a bit similar as with the carbon market, which would then be used to support making corporate claims that can be either as a net zero plastic leakage, net 100% recycled at end of life, or net circular plastic. So if you look to the benefit, the idea is that when the credits are purchased by company, the financial flows are flowing to the projects where the plastic is removed from the environment or recycled, and it will support companies to mitigate their plastic leakage. Oh, next one, please. So what makes it credible? Besides robust rules for the plastic collection and recycling, it also includes criteria on social and environmental measures at the projects where the credits are generated. There's a robust system also whereby the project must prove additionality, so that to ensure a real positive impact has been made. And this additionality has to be shown and proven and defined. The baseline is set every 7 years. During the process, every year there will be data validation, of course, to validate the number of credits that are generated. And at least every 3 years, assessments has to be done. And there are requirements to ensure no double counting of plastic waste reduction. But who's using it, as I mentioned, is quite a young scheme launched in last February. The ones that were certified, the plastic waste collectors and recycled. There are currently quite a bunch of projects that are preparing for certification. Some of them already more advanced than others. One very concrete. But if you look to which companies are behind, and then you can also look at it to the members of the 3R steering committee, and it includes also companies like Danone, Nestle, Tetra Pak, and Veolia. So it's very interesting one, and we see a lot of demand coming up in the market for it at the moment. So that's it so far.
Okay, thank you so much, Frank. And thank you for the questions that are coming through. Again, any further questions, please do put them in the chat. But we're now going to hand over to Catherine, who's going to talk to us about ocean-bound plastic.
Great. So now I will give you an overview about ocean-bound plastic standard. OBP was developed by the NGO Zero Plastic Oceans in partnership with Control Union. And it basically serves as a tool for the industry to focus on collecting, recycling, and treating of ocean-bound plastic. Overall, the program was designed to fight against ocean plastic pollution, so environmental value is added by collecting and treating OBP before it actually reaches the ocean. So here it is important to stress that we are not talking about plastics that is already in the ocean. Ocean-bound plastic is abandoned plastic waste close to the shore. So if that waste is not managed correctly and abandoned in the environment, it will end up in the ocean. So our focus here lays on collecting the plastics before it reaches the oceans in order to effectively remove OBP before it is too late. So the scheme is composed of two sub-programs. The first one is the recycling sub-program to make certified claims on the origin of ocean-bound plastic and the content of recycled OBP of the products. The second one is the neutrality sub-program, which gives companies the opportunity to offset their plastic footprint and produce OBP plastic neutral products. So it is a little bit the same idea like for carbon credits, but just used for plastics. So who is it for? Basically, OBP is for any party involved with the plastic industry, collection and recycling organizations, as well as any company willing to offset their plastic footprint. The main benefits are, as a company, you can ensure that the plastic collected is truly certified OBP. The program creates additional value, of course, to products made with certified OBP. And adequate disposal of non-recyclable OBP is ensured. And lastly, employment opportunities can be created by generating a market for recyclable and non-recyclable OBP. Next one, please. What makes the standard credible? OBP is the very first and only third-party certification scheme dedicated to ocean-bound plastic, which shows the credibility of the claim. So every step of the supply chain must be certified so that a product claim can be made. And 60% of ocean plastic is non-commercially recyclable. So the OBP neutrality sub-program covers both the commercially recyclable and the non-commercially recyclable ocean-bound plastic. OBP is also a very new certification in the market, and it will complete 1 year in June. We have seen more and more interest in the world, and companies like Hang Yap Industries, I hope I'm pronouncing it right, Plastics for Change, Ton to Ton, Mon Export, and Regalia Trading. They are already among those that are certified and work in one or more sectors of collection, recycling, and neutralization services. We also expect the number of certified companies to strongly increase this year, so that's some good news. Lastly, you will see a quote of the founder of ZPO, Vincent Decap. He agrees that the ocean-bound plastic OBP certification program supports the removal of commercially recyclable and non-commercially recyclable OBP to prevent it from becoming oceanic plastic litter. So organizations can use the standard of the program to make recycled OBP content claims for OBP neutral claims or sell OBP credits for plastic footprint offsetting. So this was all about OBP, and we're now at the summary already. We explored the range of plastic certifications that we as Control Union have to offer, and We, of course, hope that you got a better understanding on the importance of plastic certification and, of course, which plastic certification is actually relevant for your specific business. Here we would like to give you an overview of the certification process. Whilst the process for each scheme has slight variations, the overall approach for companies to get certified is as follows. So the first step is after you completed and submitted the non-binding application form online, you will receive an offer letter including price and timing as well. Once approved, you can sign the contract. In the third step, after the offer is accepted, we will schedule and conduct the audit. Here it is useful that you read the standard and prepare relevant documents. And the initial audit will check compliance of your system, practices, and products with the relevant standard. The next step is the results of the audit will be reviewed by our certifier, who then makes the final decision if a certification may be granted. So if non-conformities are noted, you will have to develop corrective actions in order to close the so-called NCs. If all non-conformities are closed, the certificate can be issued. And at this point, logos and artwork associated with the standard will be reviewed. This is before being approved by us on your products, packaging, or marketing materials. Depending on the standard you are using, the logo approval will either be done by us or the relevant standard owner. So this is just for you to get another overview of all standards. The chain of custody was mentioned a lot. It verifies the path from the input material to the final product. So this means every step along the supply chain has to be certified. Here in the table, you can see that the majority of standards are chain of custody certifications. The management system, apart from plastic-free, all standards require an implemented management system. And also, as you can see, all certificates have a validity of 1 year, which means that you have to be re-audited once a year. The type of audit is either on-site or remotely. Of course, right now we're struggling with the COVID situation, so it might vary a little bit. Lastly, you see that most standards can be audited along with other schemes. For example, it is possible to audit GRS and OBP together to create synergies, since some of the requirements complement each other. Thank you so much for listening. We're already at the end of the presentation part. We have now some time to answer your questions. I will hand over again to my colleague Rose, who is managing the questions with you, and hopefully everything gets answered.
Thank you very much to all of our speakers today. We have had some great questions coming through already on the chat, but if you have any more, please do type them in and we'll endeavour to get to all of them over the course of this Q&A session. So we're going to start with the questions that we've had on plastic free. So Frederica, these are for you. The first question we had was, is plastic free based on 50% bio-based for the minimum for this standard?
Yes, it is. For compostable materials, of course, like the main requirement is that they have to be at least 50% bio-based. This is an initial threshold that a Plastic Planet set in order to, of course, give a push towards using more bio-based content, in developing new materials. But of course, this percentage will be increased because the aim is to reach like 100% bio-based.
Fantastic, thank you. And another question regarding plastic-free and responsible plastic management. One of our attendees noted that there were some food retailers listed against those certifications, but wanted to know, how about the apparel industry? Are there any textile retail brands or garment manufacturers currently certified against either plastic-free or responsible plastic management?
Fun enough, interesting enough? No. So there are many campaigns, and also Plastic Planet, which is the standard owner, they are running like a very important campaign for the textile industry, because we know it's one of the biggest user of plastic, either recycled or virgin plastic, and one of the biggest polluter in this sense. So they are running a campaign to sensibilize and demonstrate that there are alternative materials that can be used also in the apparel industry. At the moment is, like, for example, for plastic free is quite tough, because the requirement is that, of course, like, the products must be 100% plastic free. Well, we know that for some scheme there is like sometime like the 1, 2, or even 5% of tolerance, but in this case, of course, it wouldn't be applicable for plastic free. But one application that we're trying to push in the apparel and textile industry is for the packaging. So to push towards using plastic-free packaging, especially after the pandemic, during and after the pandemic, the online sales, of course, like, were the biggest way of selling products, and obviously the amount of plastic used for that, it was like really, a really huge amount of plastic. So just acting on the packaging would make like a big benefit. But we're definitely, at the moment, we don't have any, but we would love to welcome textiles and apparel industry for both schemes.
Fantastic. Thank you, Frederica. And another question regarding plastic free is about the definition of plastic free, definition of plastic, sorry. So one of our attendees has pointed out that different certificates have different definitions of plastics, and that materials can be considered plastic free from one point of view, but plastic from another. So the simplicity for the customer is maybe lost. Do you think there's going to be a European or global consensus at some point? And what do you think the definition of plastic will be like? I know this is a tricky question, Frederica. So I think we're not looking for an absolute certain answer, but just your personal opinion here.
Yeah, no, actually, I was ready for this kind of question. I was expecting it, because like this is like the central knot of the issue, the plastic definition. Now, of course, governments and also the European Union, they use chemical definition to define plastic, which can be a bit obsolete. Of course, nowadays we have like new great materials that are like act as like plastic material, but used as an adjective, but they are not plastic, because like they don't stay forever in the environment, and of course they can be composted. So, for example, for plastic free, we in the plastic free certification scheme, all the compostable materials, industrially compostable materials, are not considered as plastic, because of course they are trying to eliminate what stays in the environment forever, and it doesn't have an end of life. The whole principle behind the plastic-free certification is to ensure that the beginning of life and the end of life of the product is sustainable. So like this is why there is like for the moment 50%, but then it's going to increase of biocarbon content, because of course the beginning of life is really important, just to get rid of fossil fuel based plastic and products, and the end of life as well. So whatever is compostable is not considered as plastic. Obviously there are like big this is like quite a big deal, because of course like government are tending to stick to our definition, while obviously there is like a big pressure, first of all, from like the industry, because if the definition is not improved and is not made more suitable for like the new developments that we have right now, obviously there will be no advancement. The industry will never advance, and companies will never invest in materials that are more sustainable than plastic, obviously, that cost more than plastic if they are defined in the same way. So there is like a big pressure, especially we work very closely with the Plastic Planet, and I know that they are putting like a very big pressure, especially at the European community level, in order to redefine plastic and, you know, to look at sustainability and not to, you know, just look at the old definition that was used so far.
Fantastic, thank you. Another attendee would like to know if there's any feedback from waste management companies regarding the plastic-free certificate.
Not at the moment, because obviously this is like a product-specific certification. So we mainly deal with companies that want to certify their own product. We don't, unfortunately, we don't have many contacts with like plastic, like waste management. But obviously, any feedback will be absolutely welcome, and probably the standard owner, like a Plastic Planet, will have like a clearer idea on that than ourselves.
Great. So we have a client who is an attendee, sorry, who is a synthetic yarn manufacturer. They use plastic bags for packaging and transport of finished goods, and they want to know what the requirements around responsible plastic management might be for their type of organisation.
Yeah, so because they produce plastic products packaged in plastic materials, they would be considered as a high plastic user. But of course, like as we said, the plastic, the RPM, the Responsible Plastic Management Certification, is all based on improvement and commitment. So, for example, once they demonstrate that they have, like, in order to become certified, they need to demonstrate that they have like a plastic policy. So to keep a register, to demonstrate, you know, the material mass balance between input and output, to create like a reduction action plan, and then keep a record of the reduction that they are actually verifying, and obviously to set continuous improvement targets. So like any company can definitely become certified, because the targets are like improvement based and not fixed amount of percentage. So it's really good for these. Fantastic.
Thank you very much, Frederica. We've got a couple of questions about GRS. So Hannah, one of our attendees would like to know which part of social environmental aspects are covered by GRS.
So I will not go into detail on this question, but generally there's a very broad list. All companies certified against GRS are required to have a clear set of policies to ensure compliance with social and environmental requirements, and to also do record keeping. Social requirements include forced, bonded, indentured, and prison labor, child labor, freedom of association and effective recognition of the right to collective bargaining, discrimination, harassment, and abuse, health and safety, wages, benefits in terms of employment, and working hours. For environmental requirement, there's, of course, the environmental management system and the chemical management system, which has to be set up. And then for the environmental parts, it goes into energy use, water use, also wastewater and effluent, the emissions to air, and the waste management. And for chemicals, there are restricted chemical substances in GRS. There's a list of inherently problematic substances which are not to be used, or substances which are not or do not comply with the manufacturer's restricted substance list, so the MRSL from ZDHC, which is zero discharge hazardous chemicals. They are also not allowed to be included, or any substances or mixtures classified with particular hazard codes or risk phrases. If further information on this is needed, we can also go into this in more detail, of course, but I think this gives a good overview for the beginning.
Absolutely. And just to emphasize that point, if there are any questions that any of you have that we don't give a full enough answer to, or if you want to discuss things outside of the context of this webinar, we're very happy to have follow-up meetings with anyone and everyone who would like to. Next question on GRS. GRS says it has to have a minimum of 50% recycled GRS content to make the claim. The question is, do we have to consider the entire product, which are 100 to be the total, or are we considering some of the individual materials separately in the GRS certification?
So first of all, because some of you might now be confused, as I mentioned 20% in the presentation. So the 20% recycled content are to be certified as GRS. But then if you want to make a claim on your product, it needs to be at least 50% GRS certified. There are different ways to approach this in general. You can have the full product certified and then say 50% of the product, but there are the options of having partly certification if it can be clearly distinguished in the product.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Hannah. Moving over to a question for possibly Frank or Luke, who is one of our heads of control unit in Germany. Over to you guys as to who answers the question. But the question is a really good one. What's the difference between a plastic credit and a carbon credit? Frank was talking about plastic credits during his presentation about the Vera standard that has recently come out. So Frank or Luke, which one of you would like to take that?
No, I can answer that one. It's a good question, and the concept is completely similar. So you do the quantification of the impact. It's also done with carbon. So for a company, you quantify what's the carbon impact, and then you see how you can mitigate and reduce your impact internally. Everything which you cannot address, you can offset with buying credits, and the same applies with plastics. So first quantification of your plastic impact, then looking how you can mitigate your impact by reducing, reusing, and recycling, and to the extent you cannot reach the 100%, the full net. You cannot tackle your full impact, and you can offset with purchasing credits. Oh.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Frank. There was just another question about GRS, so we'll just come back to Hannah briefly. So this is from a client who says that they are GRS certified. Most of their yarns are more than 50% recycled content. Is there any chance they can get the RCS blended certificate with minimal efforts?
So the GRS and the RCS are very closely connected. So therefore, I would say, well, I don't know the structure you have now, but I would say that this can be done quite easily, yes.
Fantastic, thank you, Hannah. Sorry, I realised I just clicked on the slides there. As I'm sure you can imagine, I've got a lot of different windows open trying to have all of your questions. Okay, so going over to Hannah, we have had, Catherine, we've had a lot of questions around ocean-bound plastic. Starting with the question, is there also an additional extra certificate for OBP as for RCS and GRS?
Is there, I'm trying to understand the question correctly, is there an additional certificate?
An additional certificate for OBP. So I guess with GRS and RCS, those are sort of different varieties, and you've got RCS blended, RCS 100. So I think what this person is asking is, are there different types of OBP certificate?
Yeah, so basically there are these two sub-programs. These are the main distinctions that I mentioned. One is for recycling companies, and one is for the neutrality claim. So within that range of recycling, there's of course different for collection parties, for recyclers, and for the trading party. So basically, there's one OBP certificate for recycling and one for the neutrality, but this depends on which activities and which claim you want to make.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. And can ocean-bound plastic be combined as a certification with GRS to ensure full supply chain traceability?
Yes, as I mentioned, it can be combined with GRS and RCS to make an even stronger claim in that way. So some of the requirements really complement each other. So it just adds additional values, and you do not only use recyclable materials, but you also add the value of OBP to complement to cleaning oceans. So it's just an even stronger claim in that way.
Okay, fantastic. And another client would like to know, does the OBP certification require, is it required for spinners and fabric manufacturers as well as garment manufacturers?
Yes, so all our parties that are involved in the supply chain needs to be certified. If it's according to the recycling standard. If you choose the sub-program of plastic neutrality, then it's a different issue.
Brilliant, fantastic, thank you. We have a question from somebody at Tide Ocean. Hello, welcome. Sorry, at Tide. So the ocean material upcycling. They are RCS and GRS certified by Control Union, and they're now looking to take steps to get OBP certification in Thailand. So they want to know, and they want to do the same in Hong Kong. They want to know, do we have a Control Union agent in Hong Kong?
Yes, so since we're presented globally, it is easy to find synergies there. So in that specific case, it's good if we get in touch, and then we will see which office is most likely to help you with that.
Fantastic. One more question, Catherine, on OBP. So this person has said, I know OBP is applied at a location of 50 kilometers from the shore in communities or areas where waste management is non-existent or very inefficient. But some cases we find out location is not located as required and plastic pollution is very serious. It may be near some lakes, but not 50 kilometers to the ocean. So can we consider it and apply OBP if we wanted to choose OBP?
You mean for the lakeside, that is also an option. As far as I know, it's 200 meters from the lake and riverside, but this really depends on the situation. So I think in that specific case, it's also good if we get in touch and then we look at it together.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've got a few additional sort of more general questions. So I'm going to open these up to all of the speakers. Whoever wants to answer, please just kind of say that you'll take the question. So the first one that we have is, do we have a list of plastic factories that are already certified by Control Union that people can use?
It depends for what. So it really depends for what scheme. For example, if they need recycling factory certified for RCS and GRS, the standard owner Textile Exchange, they have a public online directory where every certified company can be found according to the scope of the certification. So you can find recyclers, you can find manufacturer, spinners, ginners, and so on. So if the question is referred to GRS and RCS, the answer is yes on the public directories. Regarding plastic free, not yet. We are, as the scheme is very young. A Plastic Planet is working on a list of certified companies at any level. I hope that answered the question.
Thank you,
And to
Frederica.
add in on this, for Icc, there's also an online database where all the certified companies can be found.
Brilliant. So another attendee would like to know, what are the major challenges so far for working with recycled plastics, and will sourcing waste plastics be a challenge going forwards?
It might be a challenge if it's not collected, but like the amount of plastic which is already polluting our land and then our ocean is so big that, you know, sourcing material in order to recycle it and use it and put it back in the supply chain is at the moment is one of the possible and best way to go against the plastic waste issue. So not sure. The thing is that, of course, there need to be a parallel push in the waste collection. So obviously, if the plastic is not collected, it's not available for recycling. So there needs to be a balance on those two factors.
Thank you, Frederica. And I think it's worth noting that the purpose of some of the schemes that we've been talking about today, like ocean-bound plastic, for example, or the new Vera scheme that Frank was talking about, one of the things that they aim to do is really incentivize that collection of waste plastic to bring it back into the supply chain. So we have a further question, how to prevent fraud with recycling of plastic? A really good question. Can we verify it over documentation? Through use of documentation, and this user notes that there was a scandal recently within a recycling plant in Turkey. So does one of our speakers or Luke perhaps want to take this question?
Well, actually, I can take the question if everyone can hear me loud and clear.
We can.
So generally, I think fraud in waste-based certification systems, so also in other waste types, is a very challenging topic. And I think what honestly has to be said on certification with annually based audits. I used to say that well, obviously we are there one time per year. That basically means that 364 days a year we are not present at the company, and anyone who wants to commit fraud and does it well and covers it up is theoretically able to do so. And this is always a close cooperation between certification bodies like Control Union and also the scheme managers. So a couple of those scheme managers have been mentioned also over the webinar today. And basically there needs to be integrity programs around cross-checking companies, sometimes more often, sometimes unexpected, to see if their bookkeeping is in line with their actual practice. And especially when it comes to, let's say, the recycle part in supply chain. So the very first part, there obviously what auditors do is do a plausibility check. So if you are a waste recycling company, you need to have administration on the number of sources, which can be households or other professional firms using plastic. They all have a certain likely amount of plastic waste, and if you as a waste collector collect that from, let's say, 1,000 suppliers, then it is possible to make a plausibility analysis on if the amount of waste that you have sold, if that indeed can come from those suppliers. So that are important checks during the audit, and therefore, let's say, understanding on how these supply chains work is very much key, and that can also help to detect fraud. But yeah, it's never impossible, and let's say the mechanism of certification in the different parties involved, of course, have a great challenge and job to do to prevent that. So hopefully that answers the question as far as we can answer it at this point.
Thank you, Luke. Thank you. It's a tricky one and a difficult subject.
But an important one to address. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. We've had a couple of questions, similar questions about OBP. and how it relates to RCS and GRS. People wanting to know if they hold the OBP certificate already, can that be converted into an RCS or GRS certificate?
So it cannot be converted in any other certificate, because each standard has different requirements, and each standard has a different assessment form that needs to be complied to. But what is possible to combine both audits and really complement each other on requirements that are similar. But there's no conversion possible in that way.
Yeah, so some efficiencies are possible, but you do require both certificates to be done. And somebody has a question for Hannah regarding GRS, saying the point you added in the GRS standard, is there somewhere where this is clearly written, and that can be seen? I'm not sure which point about GRS was referring to.
I added something in the chat as an addition to what I mentioned earlier, that it is possible to have individual components certified. It is very important that these components are clearly identifiable. So it has to be, for example, the filling of the jacket, and then you also only claim that the filling of the jacket is GRS and not the entire jacket. So that's what I clarified in the chat. I do not have the part of the standard right now, but I will get back to you on this afterwards and send you an email where we explain, or where it explains where in the GRS this is written.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Hannah. If nobody has any further questions, Luke would just like to add a couple more points around plastic credits, I believe.
Yeah, more or less. As I see, we have a bit of time and still quite some participants that are interested in let's say, this more interactive part. Get a bit adding on to what Frank was explaining on how crediting works. We recently were engaged by a specific event who are actually thinking on how to organize plastic crediting. So we are engaging with them. They are orienting on how to do this, and it's actually the World Cup, football, soccer. So what they do is they of course have an event coming up where a lot of plastic may be used. And obviously they would like to make a sustainability claim, but it's quite difficult to ask their specific suppliers to source recycled plastic, and that is typically what we see a lot, and it may be a struggle of companies in this webinar. It is not always available yet, because a lot of those certifications that we also discussed today, they are still upcoming. So the amount of the material that you may need for your operation or your event is maybe not that quickly available. That is also why a lot of those standards work with percentage claims, like has been presented today. But crediting is another option. And for this event, they basically estimated and actually calculated the amount of plastic that the event is probably needing for various reasons. And what they basically say is we want to make a plastic credit recycled claim. And we want to make sure, for example, with the OBP certification, that we basically buy plastic credits for the amounts that plastic is collected under the OBP certification scheme. So what basically in that case happens is that there is material, let's say, collected under OBP. That product may end up somewhere in the plastic recycled supply chain. But the claim on that recycled plastic will no longer be on that final product that actually had the recycled raw material on it, but that claim is basically taken away and put on the plastics that are used at a certain event in a certain other location in the world. So that is basically how crediting could be implemented, and that means that the actual chain of custody is basically not directly linked, but rather administratively linked, making it possible to still make, let's say, on a volume perspective, 100% recycled claim, but not on the physical product of the plastic material that basically you have in your hand. For example, a beer cup at the World Cup. So that is basically how this could be implemented and how this could work. But as mentioned, well, at the current stage, it's quite explorative to see how that actually works. And that also means when we get such requests that we also engage with the specific scheme owners to see in what level they can implement such a strategy in their certification program. So just to give you a bit of an example on how that could work in practice. That's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We have had another question come through. So bio-based plastics, biodegradable plastics and compostable plastics, in what degree can they be differentiated from each other?
Okay, this is another particular question. So first of all, biodegradable is pretty much everything. It depends on the time that we consider. So, and obviously it depends on what it biodegrades into. So in terms of the plastic-free certification, the choice of the standard owner was to consider as plastic-free all those materials which are compostable, which means they can biodegrade in a reduced amount of time, and if they go back to the soil, they will actually be good for the soil and not harming. So they are not releasing harmful microplastic or nanoplastic in the environment, and they will actually enrich the soil at the end of their cycle instead of damaging or polluting it. So this is the main reason behind. And obviously there are like so many adjectives that are used next to plastic. And obviously, in this case, the standard owner, the Plastic Planet, choose the more sustainable option, which was not only biodegradable but compostable. So it biodegrades in positive substances that, if go back to the soil, they will enrich it and not pollute it.
Fantastic. Thank you, Frederica. I think we have covered all of the questions. Really appreciate everybody joining today. We will be sharing a copy of the recording of the presentation, so you can watch it back as many times as you want. I'm sure you'll all be wanting to watch it lots and lots. We would really appreciate your feedback on the presentation. I'm just going to pop a link now into the chat. If you could go straight onto there and fill in our feedback form, it would be really, really helpful for us. As you can see, quite a lot of effort's gone into today's work, so your feedback really helps us to make sure that we're making the most of how we continue to run these sorts of events in the future. Any further specific questions that you have, please do send them to either myself or Catherine. We will make sure that the right person from Control Union gets back to you. If you would like to have a conversation with us in more detail about any of the schemes that you've heard about today to find out whether they are right for your organisation, then please do get in touch and we'll set up a meeting. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. I'm going to stop the recording and close the chat now, and I look forward to hearing your feedback. Goodbye.